What's going on, everybody? My name's Slender, and today I'm going to show you guys the healing build that I use. This build has been my staple for a long time. Not much has changed, and I'm going to be honest, it has never let me down. I remember the first time somebody tried to get me to use this build. His name was Wombat Rugby, and I thought he was crazy. He said, get rid of Light's Embrace, go all AOE, you'll never look back. And you know what? I thought he was crazy, but he was right. So we're going to go over the skills, the attributes, the gear, the gems that we're going to use, the Heartrune, everything. And then of course, the most important part, how to actually use this, during a fight and how to be effective with it. So without further ado, let's get right into it. All right, so the first thing that we're going to go over is the skill tree, probably the most important part of this build. And if you guys find this video helpful, do me a solid, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, leave a comment, let me know what you guys think. And if you guys have any suggestions on how to improve this build or, anything like that, feel free to leave it in the comments. Now we're going to talk about my build, which is the AOE build. This works in PvP, this works in PvE. This is my go-to build for pretty much everything. And I'm not saying this is the best build out there. There may be some better ones, but this is mine and this works. So we're going to start out with Absolved, where your light attacks don't use any mana. And we're going to take that because we also take Blissful Touch, which heals any allies if you light attack them. And I use this whenever I get in trouble. Somebody's caught outside somewhere, they're not in the group, they can't get in those AOE heals. I just spam light attacks, if everything's on cooldown, and it works. It's kept people alive many times. Then we're going to go with Sacred Ground. This is the best healing ability in the game, hands down. So anybody that's in it is going to get healed for 16% weapon damage every second, lasts for 12 seconds, and it's got a 3-meter radius. Then we're going to take Holy Ground, which you regenerate stamina and mana 50% faster when you're standing in your Sacred. And if this, I'll get in my own Sacred anytime I get in trouble. And again, everything's on cooldown, I'm low on health. Go to your Sacred, hold block, and just pray. So we're going to take that, and we're also going to take Anointed, which is amazing. This is the bread and butter for this build. Anybody in Sacred Ground gets 50% more healing from all healing, whether it's self-heals, any of these heals. It's just amazing. Now, just a quick side note, guys, before anybody bashes this build, or if you have trouble with this build, keeping people alive, this I consider kind of a more advanced build. After you know the game, you've got to be able to dodge, you've got to be able to know when you're in danger, and it only works, and I repeat, this only works if you have a competent team. If you have DPS that doesn't know that they need to get into Sacred Ground to be healed, then this is not going to work. And you are going to get blamed for a lot of the wipes, a lot of the deaths. So guys, if you are in need of heals, if you're low on health, get in the damn Sacred. All your healing is going to be increased by 50%. You're going to get heals just by being in the Sacred, and any beacon that hits you, any orb of protection that hits you, it's all going to be 50% more effective. So get your butt in the green circle, please. Back to the build. We're also going to take Revitalize. This is basically like a refreshing move. It's a must-have. Anytime you light attack, your Lifestaff abilities cooldowns are reduced by 5%. It's a must-have. And whenever you're not healing, you are light attacking the boss or heavy attacking because of Intensify. We'll get to that in a second. We're going to take Enchanted Justice. So anytime you get hit in battle, you activate a healing aura, which is kind of nice. I don't really notice it too much, but we have to have all these to get this. So that's why we take that. And then also Desperate Speed. When you heal an ally below 15% health, reduces all your cooldowns by 10%. We're also going to take Sacred Protection. That's going to give everybody in the group 5% increased healing, so that's a no-brainer. And then Intensify. This is a pretty important one. Whenever you do a heavy attack, you can get 3 stacks of this, so it basically increases your healing by 30%. You want to keep this up anytime you can, but if things are too chaotic and you just don't have time to heavy attack, don't worry about it. Just try to keep it up as much as you can. The main thing is be aware of this. You want it. It is amazing. You get those 3 stacks of Intensify up, that's 30% more healing, and then you dodge because of Bend Light, and then you cast your Sacred, then you cast your Beacon, then you cast your Orb of Protection. So this is a great one to have. Just be aware of it. And then of course we're going to take Divine Blessing because Well, it's Divine Blessing. Whenever you heal an ally below 50% health, they're healed for 30% more. So I always take Orb of Protection. That's the second heal ability that I never swap out. I always have Sacred and Orb of Protection no matter what. It gives you your allies a Fortify, 10% Fortify, and gives them an initial heal of 8%. And then we don't really care about the weapon damage. We also take Protector's Blessing, so if it hits an ally, they also gain a heal over time. So this is doing 3 things. It's giving them Fortify, it's healing them initially for 8% of the weapon damage, and it's going to give them a heal over time for 10 seconds. So that is 6% weapon damage. So that is amazing. This is a very powerful ability. Even if it was just the Fortify, I'd probably still take it. Then we're going to take Shared Protection. So if you heal anybody, the group, with Orb of Protection, you also gain Fortify and the heal over time. So that is awesome. And then, of course, we're going to take Aegis, which just makes it spread out a little more, 3-meter radius for all allies. Then we're going to take Bend Light. So whenever you dodge, you get a 20% heal bonus. We're also going to take Beacon. So Beacon is the only ability that I'll swap out once in a while. If we're doing a boss fight or a dungeon where I know nobody's going to be able to be stacked, everybody's going to be spread out, it's really chaotic, everyone's running around, then it would be really hard to use your AOE build. So that's when I swap out for Splash of Light or Divine Embrace. So you can use these. They do have a purpose. That these are the only time I'll ever switch these out is, like I said, chaotic fight. So we're also going to take Infuse Light, and that's it. That's going to make the radius a little bit bigger. Instead of 3 meters, it's going to be a 4.5 meter radius. So it just makes the circle bigger. And then we're going to take Protector Strength, which is, if you have a buff, heal for 20% more. So this is a crazy healing output with all this focus. And that is my go-to healing build. I call it Old Faithful. Now we're going to talk about the Offhand. My number one go-to Offhand, 2 of them, are either the Void Gauntlet or the Great Axe if we don't have enough Gravity Wells. Gravity Well is one of the most amazing CC abilities for PvE and PvP in the game, in my opinion. And, more often than not, I actually use my Great Axe, but I'm not going to put that in the guide because people are going to lose their minds. And we're just going to go with the Void Gauntlet because this is a very, very solid Offhand. I'm not going to go over all the different traits, all the different perks. I am going to tell you guys which abilities I use, and that is the Void Blade, Oblivion, and Essence Rupture. In my opinion, Essence Rupture and Oblivion are the 2 staples. This is going to give everybody heals, self-heals, or basically lifesteal when you put it on the enemy. So you're going to want to use this on bosses or on big mini bosses. You fire a projectile that inflicts Essence Rupture for 10 seconds, and it heals anyone that's doing damage to the target for 20% of the damage done. And then also, Invigorating Rupture, allies additionally receive 15 stamina when hitting the target. So that is huge, especially for tanks if they could get a couple hits to refill their stamina. And also, friendlies within 4 meters of the afflicted target are healed for 80% of the weapon damage when Essence Rupture ends. So that's also a really, really good perk to have for Essence Rupture. This is a must-have in my opinion. And then Oblivion, if you don't know about Oblivion, check it out. It is an amazing ability. So this is another stamina regen for your tank. So whenever I'm able to, if I know I'm not going to get killed, I'll run in, I'll dodge roll, or I'll run into the middle of the group where everybody's standing. I'll drop my Oblivion and then dodge roll back and get out of there, because 1 or 2 hits and you're toast with the light gear. And basically you summon a 5-meter radius on the ground for 6 seconds that deals 30% weapon damage per second to enemies. But this is the most important part. It grants everybody Empower, increasing damage by 15%. This is a huge spike in damage for your whole group if they're all next to each other. And then your attacks inflict weaken to targets inside the radius, reducing their damage by 5% for 5 seconds per hit, stacks up to 3 times. And then this is the really, really great part of it. Plus 15 stamina per second for yourself and friendlies inside the radius. So your tank will love you if you are able to run in there, drop the Oblivion, and then GTFO out of there. Now, the reason I get Void Blade is because, I'm going to use Lazarus for an example. The final boss of Lazarus, Chartis, this is huge. When he gets knocked down or anytime you're not healing, you could just bust out your Void Blade and you can actually do some pretty decent damage with it. And if you go far enough down the tree and get Void Caller, you can actually get a heal for your whole group. It's an AOE heal. It works really, really good. And this is my, my usual build if I'm going with the Void Gauntlet, which, you can't go wrong. It's got a ton of utility. It's got some self-heal in here if you hit up the Annihilation tree. It's got the Empower for your whole team. Plus, you can give your whole team self-heal with Essence Rupture on the boss fights. It is a really, really solid choice. I use this, or I use the Warhammer for the CC, or, like I said, my favorite is the Great Axe, and I'm going to show you why really quick. Now, when you're running M10s, CC is key. You want to be able to get all the mobs together. If they're running around, attacking everybody, it is pure chaos. They hit so hard, you're all going to wipe. So Gravity Well, you should have at least 2 Gravity Wells in your group, in my opinion. And, if nobody's running the Great Axe, or you only have one, I'd go with the Great Axe. You're going to be using your Lifestaff 95% of the time. You're barely ever going to be swapping to your offhand weapon. But if you do, you should have a Great Axe, in my opinion. I think this is one of the best offhands for a healer running dungeons. The Gravity Well, being able to group up all those mobs and keeping them in the middle, in the group, is huge for M10s, for any mutations really. And then I also really love Charge. It's my, oh crap button. If I need to get out, I will charge out, and you are instantly safe. In a second, you can get out of danger. So that's why I really love the Great Axe, but mainly because of the Gravity Well. And then really quick, I want to talk about the Warhammer. This is also a really, really solid ability, especially in PvP. You've got several different crowd control abilities, the main one being Shockwave. And if you get Sundering Shockwave for a perk on one of your pieces of armor, it applies Rend. It is a really great tool. It can be used for PvE and PvP. For PvP, the Shockwave speaks for itself. It's a stun. And then also, in PvE, if you get in trouble, just pull out your hammer, hit Shockwave, everything's stunned, and you can run out and get away. You can also use Clear Out to get mobs off you if you have aggro, which you're going to have aggro a lot as a healer. And then also, Wrecking Ball will knock down the enemies, and I just absolutely love these abilities. This is a great choice as a second hand for a healer for the CC abilities. Not damage, but CC. So now I just really quick want to go over some of the more helpful perks that you can get for your offhands. It's better to get it on the actual weapon itself rather than on the armor, but it is what it is if you get it on the armor. So for the Void Gauntlet, the 2 that I really like would be either Voracious Blade, which gives you some self-heal, or Empowering Rupture. Actually, it's not Empowering Rupture now, it's Refreshing Rupture. Still, it's going to reduce the cooldown on your Rupture, so that's always helpful. Now for the Great Axe, the only one that I really recommend is Insatiable Gravity Well. This is going to give you some health back, and it's also going to cause your Gravity Well to do a second hit when it explodes. This is probably one of the better perks in the game. I really like this one. Now for the Warhammer, there's 3 viable options in my opinion. I like the Refreshing Mighty Gavel, which reduces the ability's cooldown. Sundering Shockwave's probably the best one. It's going to apply a Rend to the whole group that you hit, so that's going to be huge for PvE. And then Leeching Path of Destiny is actually really nice. It's going to give you a nice chunky heal. Now we're going to talk about the Lifestaffs, probably the second most important part of the build. So if you're brand new and you just hit 60, or you're working towards it and you haven't been playing for very long, this Lifestaff will get you through for a long time. This is a great Lifestaff to start out with. This is from your faction vendor. It has the 25 focus. It has Blessed, which is the most important perk on a Lifestaff in my opinion, and Refreshing Move, probably the second most important perk that you can have on a Lifestaff. So this is a gem. You're going to be using this for a while, so pick it up if you're a new player. Now this is the second Lifestaff you want to start working toward once you start running dungeon. This is Will of the Ancients. This has been a staple for everybody for a very long time until these perks got changed up, and we'll get into that here in a second. But Will of the Ancients is amazing. Blessed, which is a #1 perk to have on a Lifestaff, 20% healing bonus. You cannot go without that. Refreshing Move, absolutely amazing, reduces your cooldowns by a huge amount. And then Refreshing, this is another staple, as far as perks go. So get your hands on Will of the Ancients, and if you don't get it in the drops, you can craft it using materia. Now we're going to talk about what I think are the 2 best in slot Lifestaffs. Now these are either going to have to be crafted, or you just got to get really, really lucky on a random Lifestaff roll. So The first one, now this is my favorite, has Blessed, Refreshing Move, which I think are two perks that you have to have on a best in slot. And then the third perk is going to be a Lifestaff perk, which is either Mending Protection or Fortifying Sacred Ground. Now, again, my opinion, this is number one right here. This is best in slot right here for me. But a lot of people are probably going to argue and say that the Fortifying Sacred Ground is better. And you know what? With good reason, they're probably right. I just like to get those big healing numbers. But deep down inside, I know Fortifying Sacred Ground is probably going to be a better choice. But either one of these Lifestaffs are going to be absolutely fantastic. And in my opinion, better than Will of the Ancients. Now, if you want to see why I like Mending Protection so much, check out my video on me testing Mending Protection, and then, you know, maybe you'll think the same way. Now we're going to talk about attributes. I go usually with 100 con, or sometimes if it's a tough fight, 150 con. Either one's perfectly fine. Then you're just going to put the rest in focus. With this amount of focus, your AOE heals you're going to be a healing monster. I'm telling you, this is so much fun. If you haven't tried it, try it. The reason we go with at least 100 is because 10% max health is huge. And then, of course, your consumables 20% stronger. That's another one that you just have to have. Sometimes if I'm feeling froggy, I'll go with 50 con, but I'm usually at either 100 or 150, depending on the fight. Sometimes I'll go with 200 if I'm just lazy and don't want to really, work too hard to stay alive. But 100 to 150 is definitely your sweet spot. And right now I'm using the food that gives me 40 constitution. So you're either going to use the roasted rabbit for the 40 constitution, or you're going to use the focus food, which is the blackened lava barb with corn succotash. And on your offhand, you can either go constitution or focus. Just figure it out based on, your attributes, your armor, what stats you have, but that's what I go with. Now let's talk about jewelry. There's a lot of options here for the jewelry, but I'm going to give you the must-haves and then, the optionals. In my opinion, you guys could have different opinions, that's fine, but this is what I do. So for the amulet, the two that you must have on any amulet that you find is Divine and Health. Those are king. And then the third is kind of optional, but Refreshing is amazing. Refreshing Evasion. Or you can, if you can't find one that's like a best in slot like we've got right here, you can go with something like Stamina Recovery or Fortified. Both of those are pretty good options as well. Now for the ring, Hardy is important and so is Sacred. Those are two must-haves. And then the third, you could go something like Refreshing Evasion. That's probably one of the best refreshing perks out there, or just regular refreshing. Refreshing Ward is okay, but that requires you to get hit 4 times, and we're not really trying to get hit, folks. Now, the reason you have to have Hardy is you'll get a third dodge roll, and that is huge. If you're not dodging as a healer, you shouldn't be healing, or you should just rethink your strategy. You're going to be dodging to get this perk, right, or this bonus healing, the 20% from Bend Light, and you're also going to be dodging to get out of harm's way, to save yourself. You're going to be dodging all the time, or you should anyway. The earrings are kind of weird. The earrings don't really have the best perks in my opinion, but something like this would really work. Regenerating is a great one. Refreshing or Refreshing Evasion, definitely a must-have on your ring. And then Refreshing Toast would work. There's also Healthy Toast is a good one. You're going to get health when you use a mana pot. So these are all really good options. Now, one of the really good sites that you can use to check all the different perks that are available on your jewelry, you can go to newworldfans.com. It's a really good website. Now we're going to talk about the optimal armor loadout. In my opinion, it is still going to be light. They nerfed the crap out of heavy gear. Medium doesn't really seem like that much of a benefit for what you're losing. I think light's going to be the best. That's my opinion. And you could do that 2 different ways, or a couple different ways actually. So normally I go with a medium chest and then everything else light. That's going to give you the most armor, or you can mix it up, depending on what perks you have on what gear. You can always change it up. And so what I'm using now in this example is a medium helmet, light chest, light gloves, light legs, and medium boots. The reason I like light is it gives you a huge bonus to your damage and healing. It is unbelievable. And I gotta have my dodge roll. It gets me out of trouble. And, I just love it. This is the optimal loadout for me. But if you want to try out medium or heavy, you can. But I really suggest against going with heavy. You just lose so much healing power. It's unbelievable. Are you guys still with me? I'm so sorry it's a long video. I'm doing my best to make it as short as possible because everybody's complaining. Your videos are too damn long. Get to the point. By the way, if you guys find this helpful, don't forget like and subscribe. Thank you. I love you guys. We're almost done, folks. Now we're going to talk about the perks. This is a pretty hot topic. You know, people have their different opinions, views. Number one on the list that you're going to want to go for, and this is all going to be in priority from best to worst, is refreshing evasion or refreshing. You want this on every single piece that it is available on. Refreshing evasion, I think, is a little bit better because every time you dodge, you're going to get the cooldown reduction. Refreshing is also really good. It's a constant, you know, consistent amount, but just imagine every time you're dodging, you're getting that cooldown reduction. So I think refreshing evasion is a little better. Either one will work. Try to stay away from refreshing ward unless you're a tank. That's going to require you to get hit 4 times before you get that cooldown reduction. The other most valuable perk, in my opinion, is probably going to be Shirking Fortification. If you can find Refreshing and Shirking Fort, you've got yourself a gem. Shirking Fortification, the more pieces you have, the stronger it is, and it's going to give you Fortify every time you dodge through an enemy attack. So this is an amazing perk. And then the third, I think, is going to be Freedom. This works for PvP and PvE, so just all around a great perk. And then, of course, you know, whatever dungeon you're doing, you don't have to have the ward, but, you know, Corrupted Ward, Ancient Ward, that's going to help a ton. Some people say, you know, it's one of those crutches that, you know, you don't have to have it. You just get it if you're lazy or don't know how to dodge. But I think it's really good and, you know, definitely worth, you know, the piece of gear if you could find it on there. So those 3 perks are going to be amazing. Some other perks that are going to work are something like, as a healer, you're always getting hit by the bows. So I think Physical Aversion is another really good one. It's going to help you from, you know, those range guys, and they freaking hurt in mutation. So Physical Aversion is one that I think is okay on a piece of armor. Now, if you're looking for just a straight PvP armor set, you're going to want these in order, in my opinion. Resilient, number 1, and then Refreshing or Refreshing Evasion, Freedom, and Shirking Fortification. Those are all going to be really great perks for a PvP set. And then you're going to want to get Fortifying Sacred Ground if you don't have it on your Lifestaff. If you have Fortifying Sacred Ground on your Lifestaff, then you're going to want to get Mending Protection on your gear. If you don't know, the ability perks like Mending Protection, like Insatiable Gravity Well, they are much stronger if you get it on the weapon. So you're going to want either Mending Protection, that's my favorite, or Fortifying Sacred Ground in your Lifestaff. And then again, get the other ones on your gear, on your armor. This is an example of a great PvP piece. This has all of them: Freedom, Refreshing Evasion, and Resilient. The only thing it's missing is Shirking Fortification. And also, Shirking Energy is a pretty decent perk as well. I actually found a piece on the PTR with Shirking Fort and Shirking Energy. Shirking Energy gives you stamina if you avoid a hit by dodging. So that's another great one. Stamina is very important for a healer because if you don't have stamina, you are a sitting duck. You're going to get nailed and it sucks. So you want to be able to dodge as much as you can. So now we're going to talk about how to put all this together and be an effective AOE healer for your team. And it's really not that hard, as long as your teammates know what's going on. Let them know that you are using your AOE healing build and that they got to try to stay together as much as possible. The range guys, there's really nothing they can do. They're on their own, man. No, I'm just kidding. You can always hit them with a quick orb of protection or a beacon if you have to. But when they take damage, they should be running into the sacred and then getting back out. And remember, you still have your light attacks for when that person gets caught out, they start taking damage. You know, that's only if everything is completely on cooldown and that's your only option. Then try your best to hit them with light attacks, and they're going to have to try to stay still. It's a challenge, but it can be done. And if all else fails, you know, they're going to have to run into the sacred or use a pot. Now we're going to call this your healing rotation or your combo. So when possible, when it permits, you're going to want to get your 3 stacks of Intensify going by doing 3 heavy attacks. Each stack is going to give you a 10% increase in healing. So that's going to be 30%. And remember, before it runs out, you can just do 1 more heavy attack and it's going to reset it at all 3 stacks. If you let it run out, you're going to have to do 3 heavy attacks to get it started again. And that kind of sucks. So I wish there was a way for this to be a little bit bigger or maybe flashing red when it's about to expire, but you know, maybe that'll come in the future. And another thing you want to be aware of, you know, if you have Mending Protection on either your Lifestaff or your gear, you can have it on either one. It's just stronger on the Lifestaff. It only works if it heals an ally with less than 50% health. It's not going to work all the time. But just as a, general rule of thumb, make sure that's one of your first heals, just in case somebody is less than 50% health. That's going to be another 42% increase on top of your intensify, everything. So it's going to be pretty crazy. And you want to do that before you drop your sacred. I know it's a lot to remember, but once you get the hang of it, again, you will be a healing monster. So you get your 3 stacks of intensify going. Then you're going to want to dodge roll. And then hit them with orb, then put your sacred down, then put your beacon down, and they're going to be healed for so much, it's going to be crazy. And don't forget to refresh your intensify stacks by doing another heavy attack before the timer runs out. Now, just as a quick note, I don't use any Brilliant for mana regen. I don't use any siphoning stuff for mana regen. Mana regen is not an issue for healers in this game. Just use mana pots. That's going to be more than sufficient. I don't waste any perks on that. Now, since you don't have any single target heals, it's really hard to heal yourself. Don't ever waste a sacred on yourself. Don't ever waste a beacon on yourself. Those are very valuable heals that you need to keep on the group. If anything, you're going to need to use a orb of protection, since that's your quickest cooldown, and just don't use your health pots until you absolutely have to. And that's going to be your pretty much your only self heal. And if you don't have a healing pot and everything's on cooldown, your only 2 options are 1, run into the sacred, or 2, use this amazing healer ability, Dark Ascent, to get out of trouble. You will heal yourself for 100% of the damage done, and you're going to stagger everybody that was attacking you, which will cancel all of their attacks, and you will get a fortify. So what I'm using is the stalwart Heartrune of Dark Ascent. So fly up into the air, plummet back down to the ground, staggering and dealing 100% Heartrune damage within a 3-meter radius. With Leeching Ascent, you're going to heal for 100% of the damage done, and you're going to gain a Fortify on successful hits, 3 hits max, increasing damage absorption by 10%, but reducing your outgoing damage by 10%, which doesn't even matter because we're a healer. This is, in my opinion, the best healing ability. Whenever you get in those moments where you've got tons of aggro, crawlers on you, whatever the case is, and you don't have any heals, this is an amazing ability to use. Now, one of my good friends, Kat, she thinks that the stone form is the best healing ability, but, to each his own. We agreed to disagree. Well, she didn't agree to disagree, but I did. So you might want to check out the stone forms. Now, as far as gems go, personally, I just use diamonds in both my weapons, and I just use the regular version of the diamonds, not the rune glass, because the regular ones give you 15% damage and healing while at full health, and the rune glass ones only give you 12%. You get that extra stamina, but, I just use the 15%ers. Now, in all of my gear, I use the rune glass gems, and I use the energized version because it gives you stamina on successful hits. Again, this is just my opinion. That's what I use. You guys could use whatever you want. In the total grand scheme of things, these gems aren't doing a whole lot. And I use diamonds because they give you both physical and elemental damage absorption. Oh man, we made it to the end of the video, finally. Thank you guys for hanging out. Thanks for sticking with it and just watching the whole thing. I hope it was helpful. I love you guys. Thank you so much for the support. And, don't forget to like and subscribe if you guys want to see more videos like this. Now, check out the description. There's going to be some really cool videos. I test Mending Protection, the perk, and how amazing it is on the Lifestaff. I'm also going to show you guys the Dark Ascent in action with like 20 plus elite mobs. And also, I'm going to have the legendary Cilla fight. Back in the day when the mutations first came out, me and my squad, we did the Cilla fight, M10, with 25 stacks the whole time. We did not take a single orb, and that was using the same exact build minus the rune glass gems and the Heartrune gems. So check it out. It was so much fun. Thanks for watching. I love you guys, and you guys all have a great day.